Okay. Hello. This is my, I guess, sample application video for LSAT Demon tutoring. Let me go share screen. All right. Should be good once I open this, right? Okay. All right. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Let's go through it. Let me just read real quick. I'll pause and give notes if I have. All right. Physician states heart disease generally affects men at an earlier age than it does women. All right, who tend to experience heart disease after menopause. Why menopause? Both sex hormones, estrogen, but when they're relatively young, men have 10 times as much testosterone as women, and women abruptly lose estrogen after menopause. We can conclude then that testosterone tends to promote and estrogen tends to inhibit heart disease. Okay, no. The conclusion where there's no base for them to get that off of. I know it's pretty easy to fall into the trap. Like heart disease affects men at an earlier age, and then you see these things developing at an early age, like the increased testosterone and the drop in estrogen after menopause, and that's why women can develop it on later. But we don't even know the rate at which women develop later. All we know is that men develop early. So there's absolutely zero justification for estrogen being claimed to inhibit heart disease. I can see where people could fall into the trap of believing that testosterone is, or I don't really know if it is in reality or not. That's not important for an LSAT question. But yeah, so just off reading that, I haven't even read the question yet. I just know that this is going to be a flaw in an assumption question, and it will have to do with the hormones not being shown to correlate or not correlate to cause heart disease one way or another, up or down. And so moving on to reading the question, the physician's argument is questionable because it presumes which one of the following without providing sufficient justification. Okay, yeah. So briefly the question type, we already know the answer to it. It is the gap between the conclusion, which is, they made it easy for us. We conclude that then that testosterone tends to promote and estrogen tends to inhibit heart disease. And the only pieces of evidence that we have been given for that is that young men have 10 times as much testosterone as women do when they are young, and that women lose estrogen after menopause. And then the what that is meant to support is that heart disease affects men at an earlier age than it does for women. So you can see that there's no real explanation there. It's just two different statements that are then supposed to translate into a third whenever you give them a huge assumption. But then, with practice, it becomes really easy to spot out these assumptions. So based on what we know now, I am pretty confident going into these answer choices. Let's look at A. Hormones are the primary factors. Like I could stop reading right now, but we'll go through it. Okay, I'll tell you why. So hormones are the primary factors that account for the differences in age-related heart disease risks between women and men. So the reason why like my eyes got big is because of the word primary. We just listed out the pieces of evidence. There is no other factors mentioned other than hormones here. So that can't be an assumption made by the author because it's not like they were listing out all of these things and then it's like, okay, so to most protect yourself against heart disease, resist this. That's not what the author was doing. So this can't be the answer because the author didn't do it, and like that's the nature of a flaw question, right? And so yeah, there's nothing for the author to determine otherwise, and so that's why the word primary makes A wrong. Moving on to B, estrogen and testosterone are the only hormones that promote or inhibit heart disease. Uh, you heard the emphasis on the only. That's the reason why B is wrong. Similar underlying logic to A is because there's just no other like phenomenon or I guess factors listed. So we are making a huge assumption for the author if we were to think that just because they're not listed means they don't exist. So yeah, B is out because the author didn't do that. It's completely unnecessary for the argument to stay the way it is, so B cannot be the answer. Moving on to C, men with high testosterone levels have a greater risk for heart disease than do postmenopausal women. No, this is also a humongous assumption for us to create. Uh, so for one, we don't know what high testosterone means. We know that men, when they're young, have 10 times as much testosterone, but we don't even know if that necessitates as high. That could be like when they're 12 and they have more testosterone when they're 25. We have no clue based off the stimulus. And so, I mean, for that alone, I wouldn't pick this answer, but if you want to look at postmenopausal women, we also have no clue what the heart disease rates are for postmenopausal women. All we know is that men get heart disease earlier than women go through menopause. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. And so, yeah, and then to compare them, that's just an extra, that's like three assumptions that you have to make for the author to allow C to make sense. And so, if you just learn to be a natural skeptic and not let that happen, then C wouldn't stand a chance against you. And now, moving on to D, because hormone levels are correlated with heart disease, they influence heart disease. Um, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I read it. I just didn't read it right. I like glanced over hormones and then I didn't make the link. It's easy to really read over things, but yeah, no, this is absolutely our prediction. Hormone levels, meaning estrogen, testosterone, as we all know, are correlated with heart disease. Then they influence heart disease. If D were to be sufficiently answered, or I guess adequately answered, I should say, that would then make this a more complete argument because we would then know why they can create the causal link from just what is seemingly just two separate statements. The answer to D is the missing piece of this argument. If they did influence each other, then you could then conclude that one tends to promote and one tends to inhibit. Because otherwise, we have no clue. It could be a complete coincidence. They could both be following some third phenomenon. We really have no clue. Like maybe people just, I don't know, drink more energy drinks whenever they're older. We really have no idea. Not based on what was shown by us here. And so moving on to E, I really like D. We'll read E anyways. Hormone levels do not vary from person to person, especially among those of the same age and gender. Do not vary from those of the same age and gender. Okay, yeah, it's just I'm having a hard time explaining it because it just kind of feels irrelevant. I feel like a good question for this to come up on is one where the sample is the issue because there's really no sampling being done here. This is like very broad analyses, and so the author doesn't need to have the hormone levels be the same for everyone to be able to come to the conclusion. That's pretty irrelevant. It's not like they're interviewing like six people off the street, and then in order for these results to be conclusive of the entire population, they need to be like pretty similar. Like there's not even a threshold mentioned. We only know that men have 10 times as much testosterone as women, and women abruptly lose estrogen after menopause. Like they're not even giving us amounts there. So there's legit no bounds or no foundation for E to be the missing gap in this argument. And yeah, I guess I have no more comments on E. I don't see many people picking that, even though it is like a bit confusing just because it's like it just is irrelevant. But a good like cheat code or a good check for flaw questions is you just have to see if the author did it, Like it can't be the author's mistake if the author didn't commit that mistake. So don't just think like flaw, you don't understand the argument, like you just pick the one that makes the least amount of sense. You have to really just slow down. You'll save yourself time in the long run by slowing down. So yeah, going with D. Let's see. Very nice. All right. And then, yeah, I think this follows the demon approach because I predicted the answer choice. I took my time reading the stimulus. I identified the conclusion and then identified the premises. And I kind of I like separated them out without diagramming. I've never diagrammed before, so if I did so out loud, I apologize. But yeah, that was unrehearsed. That was just like I answered the question previously, that's why it says 1425, but like brand new question to me today at least. And then yeah, it was just a pretty basic correlation to causation question. I feel like I walked through it pretty thoroughly for each answer choice, because like a lot of people get tripped up on different words. I feel like it's valuable to give every answer choice the light of day. And yeah, I'm hopeful. Yeah. Thank you guys. Loved your service. It was great. Took my LSAT in June, got two 172s on my practices, and I feel like the real one went even better. So we'll see. Uh, pray for me, guys. Uh, thank you.